Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:37 now, and I really appreciate all of you being with us this morning. This is sort of it's a unique way to go through grief and reflect on the life of a person who touched so many. Whether you knew him or not, Charlie Kirk had an impact. And his death is just the beginning of what Charlie Kirk will end up accomplishing on this planet. And we have much more to discuss this morning. Bethany Mandela is with us, and thank you, Bethany, for helping me keep it together.
It's an honor, Larry.
7:05, we'll talk to Governor Scott Walker of Young America's Foundation, whose efforts work in parallel with Turning Point USA and our campuses. 8:05, KT McFarland to reflect on today's anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, another turning point in our nation. And at 8:35, Susan Crabtree of Real Clear Politics. I want to bring in Greg Price. Now, you might not know Greg Price's name, but you know his work, I assure you. And he perfectly, I think, exemplifies the movement, and it is a movement, of young people Charlie Kirk inspired and activated. And he was one of the first people I thought of when I heard this news yesterday. Greg, good morning, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Larry and Bethany.
Real fast, Greg Price is a kind of a social media phenomenon and has worked for campaigns for political organization. You worked for the Trump campaign in 24 and worked for the White House for a stint here earlier this year as well. And you had an impact. I earlier said that I think you single-handedly, along with the president, won the social media war against the Democrats in 2024 because of your instincts and your talents. But this all started with Charlie Kirk, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in college, I graduated 2019, and Turning Point was a big thing at the time, but not even it's a phenomenon force to be reckoned with now. But I went to my first Turning Point event. Before I was doing anything I was doing today, I was going to Turning Point in 2017 when I was 19, and it was going to the events like those that, got me into doing TPUSA on my campus and college Republicans. And, I became a chapter chair, and it's, something that got my foot in the door and made friends with people I'm still friends with today. And it, you make connections that end up with you being able to work in conservative politics. And, I certainly wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing today without it. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that has a story like that. And just to, give people an idea of the type of person Charlie was, I'd met him in passing a couple times when I was in college, introduced myself and had brief conversations. And then, many years later, when he had me on his show for the first time, by then he had knew who I was and what I was doing. And I'd asked him, I was like, before we went on, I was like, do you remember, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in TPUSA in college and we had met a couple times, and I wasn't expecting him to remember who I was, but he knew exactly who I was and where I'd gone to school. And, over the years, anytime I'd I'd gotten a new job or had been doing something, he would always send me a message and be like, "Oh, you're doing a good job on this, and congratulations," and whatever. And he didn't have to do that. I'm sure I'm not the only person that's ever interacted with him that could say the same thing, but that's just
yeah. I think a lot of people could. We were having an interesting conversation off air just a few minutes ago with our executive producer Heather Hunter, and kind of debating. And I want to hear your perspective as someone who focuses so much on video and digital media and using it as a tool of persuasion, sort of debating the idea of, should these videos, these last moments of Charlie's life, should they be in the public space? And I'm curious what you think. I personally haven't watched them. I can't watch them, and I won't watch them, but I'm not sure if they should be out there or not. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate I think, especially considering, the guy now has a wife and he has 2 kids that just lost their father, and now they're going to have to, grow up, and whenever they Google their father's name, it's always going to come back to this. And so I think it's just the reality of the age we live in on social media, where things like that, horrible, terrible things like that, travel so quickly.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know if there's a way. There's not really a way we can rid ourselves of those things. Unfortunately, it's just horrible, incredibly sad.
Greg, talk to me about you're 28 years old, and much was said after the 24 election about President Trump and JD Vance appealing to this mostly male, but a lot of young women in the movement as well, but predominantly male, young, 20-something conservatives who are not only focused on the political aspects of this, but also the cultural aspects of the MAGA movement. And Charlie spent just as much time talking about faith and marriage and fatherhood as he did about taxes and foreign policy. Tell me about your friends. Tell me about the movement that you can point right back to Charlie being sort of the leader of, and where it goes from here.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's around my age will tell you about the impact that Charlie Kirk had, and I think anybody who's a college student right now will say the same thing. And you're exactly right. Like his message to you wasn't, where you should be a Republican because we want to lower your tax. You'll have lower taxes and whatever. It was, you will live a more fulfilling life in faith and by starting a family, and that's a message that appeals to a lot of people, clearly. And I think, where we go from here, he's somebody who, if I had to describe him in one way, he's somebody who wanted you to speak loudly and boldly and unapologetically and about the things that you believed. And that's what we need to continue to do. And I know that's exactly what everybody like me and so many others that he inspired to get involved in this are going to continue doing too.
All right, Greg, listen, I appreciate you getting up for us this morning and sharing your story. And I know how hard it is, by the way, but keep doing what you're doing. That's the best. As someone who went through this about 15 years ago with Andrew Breitbart, my friend and my mentor, and someone who brought me into this, that's what Andrew wanted all of us to do, and it goes without saying that's totally what Charlie wants you to do. So, you fill that space, man. You can fill it better than anyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
It is 6:44.